Hi, I'm Chris McBrien, a Gen Xer, and the pop culture from my generation is awesome.
And I'm Yancy Eaton, a millennial, and the pop culture from my generation is dope.
Episode 42, No Country for Old Men, movie review. Chris McBrien here, along with Yancy Eaton. Make sure you get us on Twitter at Yancy Eaton or at C McBrien, or make sure you head over to popgoesyourworld.com. All of our contact information is there. Yancy, I had a great weekend. I had a great weekend last weekend, man.
I know you did. I've seen the pictures and stuff, but do you want to tell the listeners what you were doing last weekend?
Yes, as I mentioned last show, I was headed out with our good buddy Derek Myers, caveman himself, and we went to see ZZ Top at Casino Rama up here in Ontario. And it was friggin' awesome. It was so funny. So we get into we had great seats, right? So we get in there, we sit down, and ZZ Top walks out. And these guys are they're in their 60s, you know what I mean? And there's, the three guys, they walk out, it's Billy Gibbons and Dusty Hill and Frank Beard, of course. Frank Beard, of course, the guy without the beard. And so they come out, and it's basically, they just stand there with their guitars in front of a wall of amplifiers and just start cranking out their tunes. But the funny thing is they came out and right away they were playing Give Me All Your Lovin' and all this, a couple other songs that are popular, right? And but I was shocked at a couple things, because I've liked ZZ Top my whole life. I always thought they were great, but I was surprised at how many cover songs that they did.
Really?
They have a songbook that goes on forever. They could do 9 hours of material of their own stuff. No, they're out there doing. What, are you okay?
Yeah, sorry, I just hit my spoon.
You hit your spoon. I don't even want to know. You weren't heating it up at the time, were you? You weren't heating it? No, okay, it's all good.
No, sir.
Good stuff. Good, thank goodness, young man. Make sure you don't go down that path. Okay, anyway, so they did all these cover songs, right? So they come out, and then they're playing some of their music, and then all of a sudden, they start talking about, they're like, when we first started out, there was this guy that we toured with, and I knew this, and they said, he really helped us out a lot, and so here's one of his songs, and they start playing Foxy Lady by Jimi Hendrix. And I remember that they had toured with them when they were really, really young, and so they're playing Foxy Lady, and then they started playing. They go, hey, one of our buddies is here. They bring him out on stage, and he's playing the slide guitar, and they start playing. I don't know country music, so you got to forgive me, but it was it's this country music. They're gonna put me in the movies. It's I don't know what it is, but they're playing this ultra country song from the 50s or something. I'm like, what the hell is this? And then they're doing a couple of their popular songs. Then they went backstage and they come out and they've got the fuzzy white guitars that they're known for from the Legs video.
Right, iconic, yeah.
Yeah, and so they do Legs, and people were just going crazy. And they get done and they go off. So everyone's still cheering.
That is really weird, and honestly, it makes me think about Prince whenever he did that Super Bowl halftime show, where he had such a gigantic catalog of hits that he could have played, but he also covered the Foo Fighters. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's weird that they would have done that.
Yeah, I don't know why it was weird, but it was okay. I guess they were great. But then they went off, and then they came out for an encore, and they did Lagrange. So of course everyone went crazy, and then they went off again, and then they came out for a second encore, and their second encore was they did Tush. And then everyone went crazy. And then they went off and they came out for a third encore. And their third encore, which was their final song of the night, they don't say anything. They just walk on stage and they start playing Jailhouse Rock by Elvis Presley.
Weird.
And that's how they ended it. They ended the night.
That is so odd.
It's bizarre, But the thing is that reminded me about the band that I like so much is they're so minimalistic in so many ways. Just a couple of notes and stuff. But I think that ZZ Top is a lesson in it's not what you play, it's how you play it. And you're a musician, you know exactly what I'm saying. It's just, I cannot explain how bluesy that Billy Gibbons is and how bluesy his guitar playing is. It's off the charts. He's just so bluesy. He can play a couple of notes and just turn it into art. It was good. It was really, really good. And I had a good time hanging out with Caveman. And before we went to the concert, we got to the hotel and we recorded an hour-and-a-half podcast doing a commentary on the movie Caddyshack.
An hour and a half? Did you really go that long?
Yeah, we played the whole movie. It's a 90-minute movie. We played the whole movie and we recorded a podcast of us watching it, commenting on the movie for an hour and a half. It was awesome. Oh, man, it was great.
I'm going to say something which is probably not going to surprise you, but I have never seen Caddyshack.
Yeah, I know. It's going to have to be on the list that I throw at you back and forth. But but anyway, we had a really good time. And Caveman actually had an idea for the show that I wanted to throw to you. He was saying he really likes the new format, how we go back and forth with the movies. But he made a really good suggestion. He was suggesting maybe what we do is we do like one of your movies, one of my movies, and then we do an episode or two of our top 5 lists. Because we were doing that before, and then go back to a movie and kind of
sprinkle it in,
yeah. And I was like, hey, you know what? I got to mention that to Yancy. So if anyone out there wants to shoot me something on Twitter or whatever, if you like that idea, maybe we'll do it. In the meantime, we got to get started. So let's go. The Fish That Saved Pittsburgh.
My parents watched this with me, and they hated it, like a lot of movies that I've already mentioned on this show.
Breakin' 2, Electric Boogaloo.
Man, Eddie Murphy did some of the best impressions I've ever heard.
Shabadoo and Boogaloo Shrimp.
Chris.
I've rewatched it as an adult. I still like it.
This brassiere is killing me, and this garter belt is riding up my ass.
Oh, my.
What could possibly go wrong?
My parents pieced out like halfway through it.
I'm good, thanks.
Yep, we're good.
Okay, so this week we are covering No Country for Old Men. So you wanted me to watch it. The thing was, I'd already seen the movie. So do you want to take it away? This is your millennial film, so why don't you lead us in the conversation?
Okay, so No Country for Old Men is not the type of movie that I typically gravitate towards. It's not... You wouldn't find movies of this similar ilk in my top 15 or 20 lists of like my favorite movies of all time. But I watched this because a friend recommended it to me. And like I said in last week's episode, this is the first movie that I ever actually went and watched by myself, just because I didn't have anybody to watch it with. Nobody knew what it was or had heard of it or anything. It is written and directed by the Coen brothers, which I'm sure, as you know, they also did The Big Lebowski, they did True Grit, they did Fargo. And when you think about that, when you think about Fargo versus this film, in a lot of ways, it's very similar. It's super minimalistic. It's shot very realistically. And it from top to bottom, it looks like a completely realistic movie. Very little, if any, special effects whatsoever. And it's just a well-written, well-acted movie that I just completely love. So what are your big takeaways from this film?
So before we get into my takeaways, so you mentioned this is not one of the movies that would normally be in your top echelon of films. And why is that? Because it's not science fiction, or or why did you pick this one then?
Right. I typically do gravitate towards science fiction. Mm-hmm. I love CGI. I love really,
you do, yeah.
Really kind of complex, wordplay and all kinds of different things going on with multiple characters. And there's like this net that's being woven that's super complex, and there's, surprises and things jumping out at you and plot changes. And I like being surprised like that. And I like being actively thinking about what's going on as far as the film goes. And with this, it's really straightforward. It is a film about money, and somebody takes money and the other person tries to get it back. It's super, super simple in that sense. It's like it's like new noir, Western film, but it is still just, like I said, it's written so incredibly well. It's shot so well. And it made me kind of like revisit and go back and watch films like Fargo, something that was more of just like a live action movie as opposed to all of the CGI and stuff. So it's kind of it's a complete opposite of the films that I typically gravitate towards, like on a Friday night whenever I'm off on Saturday and I'm just looking for something on Netflix. But I'm so glad that I actually invested the time and gave this movie a chance.
Okay, so here's my thing, and I know I'm going to get tweets and I'm going to get emails for this, but I don't care. I'm just going to say it because it's true. I gotta say, I'm not a huge fan of Joel and Ethan Coen. Mm-hmm. I'm just not. I remember watching Miller's Crossing, like back in the early 90s, and I remember I genuinely disliked it. And I thought Raising Arizona, I thought that movie was kind of weird. And I didn't really like Fargo as much as like some people did. Although I still think it's probably their best film. And I feel like if I went all the way back to Blood Simple, one of the things that I did like about Blood Simple in that movie was I liked when they were shooting bullet holes, and then there was like they were putting holes in the wall and these shafts of light were coming through, which I thought was pretty cool. But I gotta say, when it comes to Joel and Ethan Coen, I remember it was in 2008, I think it was after this. My wife dragged me to go see this movie, Burn After Reading. And it was one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, I literally hated that movie. Like, I hated it. And so I think it's pretty safe to say, overall, I'm not a huge fan of the Coen brothers, body of work. But that being said, I did like No Country for Old Men.
Yes, thank God.
But I gotta say, I have some criticism of it. And I'll say, I don't think it's all that original. Because to me, it feels like that they're trying to make a Tarantino movie. That's what I feel like.
I can see that. I can see that for sure.
Like I say, I liked No Country for Old Men, but I think if it had been directed by Tarantino, I thought it would have been 100 times better. Like 100 times. So that's my feeling on. I think the Coens I think they've actually admitted to being inspired by like Sam Peckinpah, but I think Tarantino is the one that comes through in this movie. And there's some elements of the movie, and I'm sure you're going to agree on this, that make it sort of Tarantino-esque. So the first one that stands out to me is that I don't know what's like that air gun thing, like that bolt pistol that Anton Chigurh uses. Like I remember when I first saw the movie, like I thought it was like, what the hell is this? And I thought it was like this pressurized air gun that, gives like a blast of air. But I did a little research, and it turns out it's like a stun gun, and like what they use to knock out animals in a slaughterhouse. And it has like a metal rod in it that shoots out and comes back in really fast, so it penetrates the brain, right? To me, that's something right out of Tarantino's playbook, in my opinion. I also thought it was interesting when Anton Chigurh, he spares the life of that guy at the gas station. Remember, he challenges him to like the coin flip. Again, that to me feels very Tarantino-esque. And the other thing was Josh Brolin. And as you know, one of Tarantino's calling cards is he likes to use actors that were like famous, like a couple of years ago or like many, many years ago. Like he kind of rejuvenates their career. Like
he repurposes actors.
Yeah, like John Travolta and Pam Grier and things like that, right? And they did that here with Josh Brolin. Because he was big in the 80s, like mostly because like his dad, James Brolin, was an actor and was married to Barbra Streisand, but also like Josh Brolin, like he was in the 80s staple The Goonies, right? So for those reasons, it really felt like there was a lot of Tarantino stuff going on. Do you agree with me on this?
I definitely agree with you that. And like when you talk about their body of work, this film kind of does seem like a departure from the other ones. You can tell that it's still obviously by the Coen brothers, but it is definitely a departure artistically, I think. And it does look a lot more like a Tarantino film. And I mean, just you saying that one line where you said, say the Coen brothers wrote and produced this film and Tarantino directed it, who knows what we would have had. This movie won Best Picture, but it still could have been so much better with Tarantino. I'm a huge Tarantino apologist. I think almost everything he does is absolutely genius, but that's a really, really interesting insight. I'm glad really quickly that you talked about the scene in the convenience store with the older man.
Yes.
And that, to me, is my favorite scene of the entire film. And I was making sure I wrote notes on it just to make sure that I talked about this one particular scene, because I think it puts Javier Bardem's character and his acting skills on display more than any other part in the film, I think. And it just shows like how incredibly tense and real and heavy like one particular scene can feel with very, very minimal dialogue. But you can tell like this general store guy, basically, for people who haven't seen the film, we should start doing this at the beginning. We should preface this by saying, maybe go watch the film first before you listen to this, because we were obviously going to talk entirely about the film and everything that happens. But this back and forth between the general store owner and Chigurh, his character, Bardem's character, he's basically telling him, this guy is kind of like asking him questions and, says, where are you from? Are you getting any rain where you're from down in Dallas? And, he doesn't, Bardem's character takes issue with this. Basically, he doesn't like the fact that he's asking where he's from. He feels threatened by that. And it starts a back and forth where the guy is just trying to be polite and Bardem is not taking it like that at all. So he basically, it comes down to a point where he tells him to call it heads or tails. He's going to flip a coin. And in doing so, he kind of relegates the idea of having any type of self-responsibility to chance. And that's one of the major themes of this is, free will versus chance, or just that we're all kind of like floating around waiting for things to happen to us. It's one of the major themes in this film. That's why he's constantly flicking a coin. He likes to give the idea that it's not actually him that's doing it. It's fate that's determining this guy's life. It's my favorite scene in the movie. I'm glad you brought it up. But, I mean, did you see any other major kind of like overarching themes as far as the movie goes, or anything else, any particular scene that stuck out to you?
I say overall, like to me, that was one of the scenes that I guess overall, and it happened a couple times in the movie, was anytime that he would say, please, like I think he says, this is onto Anton Chigurh, when he's like, please get out of the car. And then he's like, please just stand still. And like, what's coming. He's going to put that thing on their head and shoot them with it, like, which was kind of creepy. And maybe because he had that haircut and stuff like that, which I thought was interesting. Because I remember I had read somewhere that when he first saw a picture of the haircut that he was going to have to wear, Javier Bardem said, "Oh man, I'm not going to get laid for like 5 months," and because it was such a creepy character and all that. Just going back for a second, you mentioned it about it winning Best Picture, and we talk about this all the time. We could talk about like how movies we think got kind of snubbed in this and that. I don't think it should have won Best Picture the year it did. And I remember I was ticked when it won Best Picture, because you talk about Tarantino influences. The movie that should have won Best Picture that year was the Tarantino of all Tarantino movies that's not directed by Tarantino, if that makes sense, was There Will Be Blood. There Will Be Blood came out that year, and it was so much better. I think There Will Be Blood is the greatest American film since Pulp Fiction. So I'm really strong on There Will Be Blood. I love that movie a lot, and I thought it was
That's fair.
I thought it was a better movie that year. But yeah, so that was one of the things that sort of stood out to me. Anytime that he was, kind of doing that thing. Another thing we talk about a lot in this podcast, we always talk about like the different acts in the film. In the third act and that. And to me, the third act was what got me with this movie as being sort of a letdown. Like to me, it didn't really feel like there was a lot of resolution and stuff like that. Like, I mean, I guess Sugar makes off with the money or whatever. So there's that. But like, to me, I remember watching it, and Tommy Lee Jones is giving his speech. He's sitting there giving his speech, right? And then all of a sudden,
about the opening dialogue, or
no, the closing dialogue at the end.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden, the movie's over. And I was like, my initial thought was like, that's it? It's over? Like, well, okay, so I don't know. So there were some weak parts for that. I don't know. Do you agree with me in any way, or am I just...
I do agree with you. The way the movie does end, and especially how, the main character, our hero, dies, just all of a sudden he just miraculously dies, and that's basically the end of the movie. I mean, it is kind of anticlimactic, and it doesn't give you that closure that you're used to seeing in movie writing. And I think... some people don't like that, obviously, and they think that it's cheap, or it kind of like robs the audience of, like fulfillment that they want out of the film. But in a way, too, I think it also kind of takes a little bit of courage to make an ending to a movie that's unpopular. And I think that's kind of what they did there. I don't know that the ending is the strongest part of the film. Actually, I know it's not. I wouldn't say that the ending is what makes it genius at all. But I mean, I understand why they did it. I think it's taking a step. It's being courageous and doing something that kind of goes against the norm. And I'm kind of okay with it. The ending isn't the part that I love, minus the part with with his wife. Whenever Shigar's character meets the wife at her home, she's hiding in like El Paso or something, and he ends up finding her. And there's this like really terse talk between she and him, and she's like, "You don't have to do this." And he talks about everybody always says, "I don't have to do this." You know what I mean? Like, as if they don't understand him at all, or why he is the way he is. They just say these things like he's tormented, and he is, he's going along with it. They completely rebuke the fact that he's doing this because he wants to do it. You know what I mean? Like, this is something that he promised that he was going to do, and he's doing it. He is going to kill her. You know what I mean? That part I love about, but I do agree with you what you're saying about the ending. I wanted to ask you a question.
Yeah.
So like I said, this film, the plot itself it's very simple.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a super expansive universe. There's very small characters, small amount of characters that are in this. Very minimal dialogue. Oftentimes you see, there's drama and urgency, and it's created just by silence and these huge gaps in the dialogue where nobody's talking at all. And I think that's why it works. But my favorite thing about this film is the minor details that you see. So like, there's these minor details that tells us just how insanely skilled of an assassin Shigar's character is. Like, even like his weapon of choice, it's super weird, right? Like you said, it's literally like a stun gun kind of thing that he just walks around with, and it seems kind of stupid, but when you think about it, it just looks like an oxygen tank. Like the cop thought it was an oxygen tank, so nobody questions him.
It was disarming, right? Because that's what I mean when he said to people, "Just stand still for a second." And it's disarming, so they do it because they don't see it as a weapon, right?
Yeah, so that's just like, that's one little kink into how, like I said, the thought process that goes into how complex of a character this is, and there's like really simple things that he does. Like, before he goes to kill this person in the room in the hotel, he takes his shoes off. You know what I mean? Something really simple like that. So he's obviously trying to be quiet so he can sleuth into the room and kill them. Or something like whenever he sees the guy, he kills two guys in the hotel room, and he walks into the bathroom and he sees the guy in the shower, right? What does he do? He slowly, casually closes the shower curtain, to keep the blood spatter from coming back on him, and then he shoots the guy with a sawed-off shotgun. There's really tiny little details like that, like or another one, for instance, when he sets a car on fire, he basically shoves down like a bunch of cotton balls and sets it on fire so that he can go into the pharmacy and steal the lidocaine and other medical supplies from the pharmacy. All these things, just without actually saying them or addressing them, firsthand and bring them to your attention, you're kind of picking up these little pieces. Like, this guy is incredibly skilled at what he does. This is a skilled assassin, a skilled hitman. And it's those little details, like I said, that it makes me fall in love with this film. So many little things that they do correctly. I know you didn't really prepare for this question, but did you pick up on anything like that? Like I said, with a film with such a minimalistic plot, minimalistic, special features and characters and dialogue, do you think that's what kind of pushed this film to, winning the best picture and best director and best screenplay? Was it something like that? Or do you think there was some other like overarching feature that kind of did it for this film?
The overarching feature was the fact that it was directed by the Coens, and the way Hollywood works is Hollywood is very, very political. So when it comes to giving out Oscars, it's not always the best picture. Like I say, There Will Be Blood was the best picture that year. But what happens is Hollywood looks at sometimes as things as a body of work. Okay, so what they're doing is they're looking at the time, 2007, when it comes time to vote for the Oscar for Best Picture, they're looking at it, they're going, you know what, the Coen brothers have been around for a long time and they've done a lot of really good stuff, so we have to give it to them. And that's why I think it won Best Picture. That's my personal feeling.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting too, because you mentioned you like these big splashy movies that have like big budgets and stuff like that. The budget of this movie is $25 million. How the hell did they, like, in all honesty, how the hell did they spend $25 million on this? Like it doesn't, like, it seems minimalistic to me. Like, it seems, now it grossed like $75 million. So I mean, it got its money back. But I mean, it took a while to grow. It kind of started off slow and then, picked up some steam. But it just seemed like when I saw that, I was looking up, doing some research on it. I was like, man, I spent a lot of money making this movie. Holy crap, I can't figure it out. But there were some things I liked about it. I really liked Anton Sugar. I thought he was really cool. I thought there were some parallels to some of their other work. Again, I'm not a huge fan of their work, but I did like Fargo. I thought there were some parallels to that when you think of like the small town cop, caught up in a murder and all that. One of the cool things I will say that I thought I liked about the movie was the fact you mentioned about the minimal number of characters. Really, there was the three main characters in it, right? You got Sugar and Moss and Bell is Tommy Lee Jones' character, right?
Yep, Tom Bell. Yep.
So the one thing that you find interesting, these are the three main characters, and a lot of times they occupy the screen individually. But I don't think they even shared any screen time together at all, even though they're all kind of, and especially their fates are kind of all tied together. But I don't think there was one scene where they actually shared screen time. I could be wrong.
I think there was at the very end, but it's whenever Moss's character, or not Moss's character, but Brolin's character was dead, and he was in the work basically confirming that he was dead. So it may have even been a dummy for all we know. But yeah, no, that they don't actually, intermingle within the film at all.
Yeah, I thought there was a good. There was the one quote too is I think it was the guy's like Sugar had him with the gun, and the guy's like, "Are you going to shoot me?" And he's like, "That depends. Do you see me?" And I thought that was kind of an interesting quote, kind of an interesting line. Like, do you see me here? Yeah, then I'm shooting you, kind of thing. So that was kind of cool. But yeah, those were kind of my takeaways for it. Like I say, I liked it. I didn't love it, but I thought it was okay. So I'm curious, yeah, I guess. Why? I mean, we go back and forth and pick movies. So why was this? Why did this one over every movie that you could have picked in the of a million movies? Why did you go with this one? Just because it was it held a special place to you because it was the first movie that you saw on your own, kind of thing? Is that why?
I mean, I think that has a really small part to do with it, but I also think it was one of the first films that was able to completely grip me with no frills, or I felt like I wasn't getting tricked. I felt like it was just a really simple story that was told very, very well. Very, very well. And every single week we talk about this same thing, being emotionally invested in your characters. And that was imminent with this. Like, there was no way that I could not care about the outcome of this. And like I said, despite the fact that they had very, very minimal dialogue whatsoever, I still felt like I got a really good sense of who these characters were as the film progressed. And it made me care. It made me really, really care about it. And I was completely gripped with this. I probably watched this film maybe 12 to 15 times since it's come out, which is really weird. I know every 6 months or so I'll see it on TV or something, I'll just watch it, or it's on Netflix right now, so I just watched it again before we recorded. I love it. Like, even, we didn't mention Llewellyn's character that much, but even him, who you would kind of think of like as this, kind of like a Western, kind of like a country bumpkin almost, which is kind of, simplifying him a little bit. But even he, I thought, was incredibly intellectual. Like, when you think about all the things that he did as far as evading this guy, putting the money, the suitcase of money in the in the AC duct and then pulling it across, and really simple things that he did like that, just to or even when he went hunting for the staghorns, right? He would pick up his shells. Stuff like that. That's really small details that is super intentional. It was just riddled throughout the entire film. Just really little intentional things that just kind of, it all added up. This film does a lot of really small things very well, and it's not one big thing, I think, that kind of like did it for me for this film. It's just, like I said, the attention to detail is just unparalleled, and I think that's why it kind of did it for me.
Pretty cool. I'm just surprised because, like I say, as a millennial, I'm expecting, Guardians of the Galaxy and stuff like that from you, and like the Matrix didn't shock me at all. This one really threw me for a loop that this was going to be one of your movies that you wanted me to watch. I thought it was very interesting. Out of 10, what do you give it on a scale of 1 to 10? 10 being
I would give it a solid 9.
Wow! Holy smokes!
I think it's really
huge.
really good. Yeah.
Whoa! Oh man, you're gonna hate me. I would probably put it around a 6.5, 7. Just being honest, like I just would.
Yeah.
But 9. Wow, that's pretty good. Well, if you know this movie really really good, then I think it's time we play a little bit of a game here.
Fun with Yancy.
Okay, let's see how well you know this one. I'm going to throw some trivia of this movie at you, okay? This movie, obviously, No Country for Old Men, is a film adaptation of a novel of the same name. Can you name the author of the book that this movie's based on?
I know it's McCarthy, but I cannot remember his last name.
Okay, I'll give it to you. It's Cormac McCarthy. So that's really good. Okay, I'm going to take it a little bit further because you're kind of like you're a Renaissance man in a lot of ways. So I'm gonna really test your knowledge here.
That's the nicest thing you've ever said to me, Chris.
Oh, you absolutely are. Okay, you're a smart guy, right? So the title of this movie, No Country for Old Men, all right? It actually comes from the first line of a poem that's called Sailing to Byzantium. Yancy, can you name the famous Irish poet who gave title to this film?
I cannot, Chris, and I am not going to try.
Not even a try? I think you're a smart guy. You won a Nobel Prize, symbolist, poet,
Nope, I don't got it.
Died back in the 30s. Yeats. It was William Butler Yeats. Okay, so that's okay. Okay, right now we're going to dive into the movie and get some trivia of the film itself. When he comes across the scene of the drug deal that's gone wrong in the desert, right at the beginning, and he finds a briefcase full of money, obviously very central to the plot of the film. Yancy, how much money was in the briefcase that he finds?
$2 million.
Congratulations. Very good. Okay, let's go back in time a little bit with the Coen brothers, shall we? Can you name the first film that they ever directed?
No.
I mentioned it already earlier in the show. It's from 1984. It's Blood Simple.
Blood Simple. No, I've never seen it.
You should watch that. It's interesting. It's got Francis McDormand in it and Dan Hedaya. Dan Hedaya, by the way, piece of trivia, because you mentioned this earlier in the in one of the podcasts. You went back and watched Cheers. Remember when you watched Cheers? You watched like episodes of Cheers on Netflix. Dan Hedaya,
I got through the whole first season. Yeah.
Dan Hedaya is Nick Tortelli. So he was in Blood Simple. Anyway, so obviously this movie, No Country for Old Men, very, very critically acclaimed. Okay, we know that. And when awards season rolled around, can you tell me who the only member of the cast was to win an Oscar for their performance in this movie?
It would make sense if it were Javier Bardem or Tommy Lee Jones, but just for the sake of the question, I'm going to guess like an off pick and say Woody Harrelson.
Nah, you got to go with your first instincts, man. It was Javier Bardem, Best Supporting Actor for Anton Sugar.
All right.
Okay, but I tell you what, I'm going to take it a step further because we love all the Oscar stuff around here, right? So obviously Javier Bardem, he won the Oscar, but he's not the only cast member of this movie to have received an Oscar nomination. So Yancy, could you name the other cast members in the film, not for this movie, but who've been nominated for an acting Oscar at some point in their career? Anyone else in the cast, who do you think has been nominated for an Oscar at some point in their career?
I don't know. Josh Brolin.
Yeah, okay, so there's 4. One of them is Josh Brolin. He was nominated in 2009 for Best Supporting Actor for Milk.
Okay.
Any other guesses?
I'll go with Woody again. I don't know.
Yeah, you're guessing, but any idea? Woody Harrelson is correct. He's been nominated for 2 Oscars. Any guesses on the movies? One was Best Supporting Actor in a Supporting Role in 2009 for The Messenger, and 1996 for The People vs. Larry Flint. He was nominated for Best Actor. Tommy Lee Jones, dude, 4-time nominee. He's been nominated for The Fugitive, for Lincoln, In the Valley of Ella, and JFK. And you might never have got this, Tess Harper, Tommy Lee Jones' wife. She was nominated back in 1987 for Crimes of the Heart. So, yeah, that was a bit of a tough one. Sorry, I made that one tough. Okay, so That's all the questions I got for you this week. But Yancy, I've got something else for you here, my friend. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, young man, is to come back next week after having watched the 1984 mockumentary Gen X classic. This is Spinal Tap. You have mentioned in the past, you've said, oh, I've had so many people tell me I've got to watch that movie. Here's your chance.
Yep.
I'm empowering you to be able to go back and watch this classic Gen X film. So do you accept the challenge that I'm laying before you, my friend?
I accept. I have not seen this film, but yes, I will definitely.
But you've
accept.
definitely heard lots of things about it, right?
At one point, I had a friend lend me the DVD, and I just didn't watch it.
Why not?
So, yes.
What was the reason? You're just like, this looks dumb or something? Like, what's the deal?
Yep. I don't know. It just seems super campy. But like I said, I know I need to see it. It's important. So many people have referenced it, so I'm down.
It's almost entirely improvised, the movie. So you just have to see it. So I'm excited, and hopefully our listeners are excited too, because like lots of people hold this movie very, very near and dear to their heart, and especially us Gen Xers, we love it. So you're gonna watch the movie and come back next week, and we're gonna do it. How does that sound?
Sounds good, man.
Good deal. Okay, well, I did like the film this week. Like I said, I didn't love it. I liked it. I thought it was pretty good. So next week we'll take a look at This is Spinal Tap. Yes, this podcast is going to go to 11. You have no idea what that means, but you will next week, my friend. Let me tell you. So on behalf of Yancy Eaton, this is Chris McBride saying thanks for listening to Pop Goes Your World, the pop culture podcast for the generations.
Thank you for listening to the Pop Goes Your World podcast. Continue the conversation on Twitter at @CMcBrien or at Yancy Eaton. Please consider leaving a review for the podcast on iTunes or wherever you download and listen to the show.